A presentation on the lesson Last Spring by Anish Jung, Part 1, prepared by N. Ram. Dear students, today I will tell you about the author, introduction, and explanation of the lesson Last Spring, Class 12th, written by Anish Jung. About the author, Anish Jung was born in 1964 in Rourkela and spent her childhood and adolescence in Hyderabad. She received her education in Hyderabad and in the United States of America. Her parents were both writers. Anish Jung began her career as a writer in India. She has been an editor and columnist for major newspapers in India and abroad and has authored several books. This lesson is an excerpt from her book titled Lost Spring Stories of Stolen Childhood. Here she analyzes the grinding poverty and traditions which condemn these children to a life of exploitation. Introduction of the lesson. This story is written by a well-known writer, Anish Jung. Last Spring is taken from her book Stories of Stolen Childhood. Anish Jung unveils the utter poverty of the rag pickers of Simapuri and the bangle makers of Firozabad. Rag picker children go about barefoot. They can be seen rummaging in heap of garbage. They dig into them to find something valuable. They have no school to go to, no work to do. They loiter about uncared for by their parents as well as society. The rag pickers family in Simapuri came from Bangladesh because their fields were swept away by storms and they were forced to starve. Rag picking can provide them food only, but not a civilized life. The other part of the story deals with the lot of the poor bangle makers of Firozabad. They have been traditionally bangle makers. They are poor, illiterate, and fatalists. They believe that they are born in families of bangle makers because of their destiny, and a God given lineage cannot be broken. They find themselves in the vicious circle of middlemen and moneylenders who are helped by the law enforcing authorities. They live in filth and squalor, work and suffer all through the day. About 20,000 children help their parents in the bangle making. Though this type of child labor is illegal, but it goes on there. One of the children, Mukesh, wants to give up his work. He dreams of being a motor mechanic, but he will have to cross many hurdles before he can realize his dream. Now, the lesson. In this lesson, there are two parts. And first part, sometime I find a rupee in the garbage. This is the statement of the child named Sahib. Why do you do this? I ask Sahib, whom I encounter every morning scrounging for gold in the garbage dump of my neighborhood. Every morning, the writer sees a young rag picker boy who visits the garbage dump near her house and searches for gold in it. The writer says that he searches for gold ironically because although the garbage dump is full of useless and thrown away things, still he suffers it so minutely as if he will get something as precious as gold from it. The name of the boy is Sahib. Sahib left his home long ago, set amidst the green field of Dhaka. His home is not even distant memory. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes. His mother tells him, that's why They left looking for gold in the big city where he now lives. His home in Dhaka was in the middle of green fields. They left their home many years ago. His mother told him that there were many storms that destroyed their homes and fields. So they left home in search of food and shelter. One day, the writer asked Sahib the reason for searching through the garbage. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. Go to school, I say glibly, realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. There is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I will go. If I start a school, will you come? I ask, half joking. Yes, he says, smiling broadly. Sahib here replies that he has nothing else to do or other than the rag picking. The writer suggests him that he should go to school, but immediately she realizes that her advice is meaningless for the poor boy. And the boy says that there is no school in the area where he lives. But he assures her that if a school is built in his neighborhood, he will join it. The writer asks him jokingly that if she opens a school, will he attend it? And Sahib agrees to join the writer's school happily. A few days later, I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? It takes longer to build a school, I say, embarrassed, having made a promise that was not meant. After a few days, Sahib runs up to the writer to ask whether her school is ready. The writer replies that it takes a lot of time to build a school. Here, students, writer feels ashamed, embarrassed. Why? Because she had made a false promise. She had said this as a joke and had never intended to open a school. So she feels ashamed of herself. But promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world. Sahib is not hurt here because he is used to such false promises as they exist in large number in his empty world. After months of knowing him, I ask his name. Sahib-e-Alam, he announces. He does not know what it means. If he knew its meaning, Lord of the universe, he would have a hard time believing it. After knowing Sahib, the writer one day asks his name, and he replies as if he is making an announcement that his name is Sahib-e-Alam. The writer thinks that the boy does not know the meaning of his name, and if he knows that his name means Lord of the universe, he will not be able to believe it because his name is opposite to his life. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the streets with his friends, an army of barefoot boys who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. Over the months, I have come to recognize each of them. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I ask one. My mother did not bring them down from the shelf. He answers simply. As the writer has been seeing the rag picker for the past few months, she can now recognize all of them. The writer asks one of them that why he is not wearing any footwear. The boy simply replies that his mother does not bring them down from the shelf. as they are beyond his reach, he does not. Even if she did, he will throw them off. Adds another who is wearing shoes that do not match. Another boy who is wearing different shoes in each foot says that even if his mother would have given him the footwear, he would have thrown it away. The boy means that he is not wearing footwear because he does not want to wear it. When I comment on it, he shuffles his feet and says nothing. I want shoes, says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. The writer asks the second boy the reason for wearing different shoes in each of his foot. He does not reply and shuffles his feet as he is trying to hide the shoes. A third boy says that he is eager to get a pair of shoes as he has never owned one all his life. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot in cities on village roads. It is not lack of money but a tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. The writer further tells us that while traveling across the country, she has seen many children walking barefoot in the cities and on the village roads. She concludes that they stay barefoot not due to lack of money but as a tradition. The writer wonders that the reason if it being a tradition was a mere excuse to hide the fact that they were so poor that they could not buy footwear. Thank you for watching the video. For further explanation, please watch the next part of it and do subscribe my channel.